Okay, let me give you a little bit of background about the next area that we're going into. I have been working with the Windows family of operating systems close to 30 years, going back to the old DOS days and stuff like that. All that means is I'm older and I've seen the progression. I've seen the progression from the different operating systems, starting with Windows 3.1 and then going into Windows NT, NT351, NT40, going to Windows 2000, Windows XP, all these different server products. And there's a lot going on in the background of those operating systems. Now, Windows, whether you love it or hate it, is 70% of the operating system, desktop operating systems out there are window-based operating systems. And then Mac comes in there and Linux comes in there. And pretty much all these advanced operating systems use a lot of different files. They log a lot of events and they keep track of a lot of events. Now, there's difference between a log that is an intentional creation of a file for somebody to view versus tracking events. These operating systems use these configuration files to make our lives easier, to simplify things for the operating system and for the individual. Case in point, if I double click a document, and if that document has a certain extension to it, the operating system says, oh, you double clicked a XLSX document, so we know that's Excel, let's fire that up. And it keeps track of that. And over the course of time, it begins to realize what documents or what applications you use, and it makes things very efficient. It begins to make things extremely efficient. But also at the same time, it's keeping track of that in configuration files. Again, which are different than a log file. Now, you might have a log file that says, okay, he opened a document, he closed a document, he turned on his computer, he turned off his computer, he had bad passwords and stuff like that. And we go to log files constantly in operating systems classes to see what's going on. But we're in this class, we want to go beyond just the log files. And one of the configuration files that Windows employs is something called a prefetch file or prefetch files. There's a bunch of sorts of. And what it does is every time you launch an application, it keeps track of that. And over the course of time, it says, okay, this application was installed at this location. It's been executed so many times. It got updated, it got created. It's used these different files in the process. Now, that is not a log file. That's not something that we can look in a log file, but it is something that the operating system maintains for itself to expedite things. But we as forensics investigators can use it. Now, let's imagine, just pretend, that we've acquired a desktop or we acquired a laptop and the individual who owns it says, I've never run that program, or the program it got installed years ago. I don't use it. And let's use the example Zoom. All right, just because I use Zoom constantly. But let's say the individual who owns that laptop, we've created an image, right? We've done all that stuff. We hashed the values. We did all that wonderful stuff. So now we're working on an image. I've never used Zoom. Oh, it got installed by the manufacturer, but I've never used it. Are there ways for us to determine if that file has ever been used? Yes, there is. And that's what these prefetch files are all about. So let's go up to my screen and let's take a look at where these prefetch files are and how we can look at them. There's a tool that we can do that we can look at them. Now, I'm only using prefetch as an example. There is a series of files out there, but this is one of the more interesting one. I find it more interesting and fairly easy to explain, but there's a lot of files out there, these configuration files that we sometimes have to drill down deep into. So let's go up to my screen. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a subdirectory in which these prefetch files are located. And to get to that subdirectory, I have to go in as the administrator of the machine. So we're assuming that we're able to fire up the image, but then have to go as the administrator. So I'm going to go to a terminal as the admin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a terminal as an admin, let it fire up, and I'll bring it over because I'm using multiple screens here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to CD Windows Prefetch. All right, and it brings me down to that subdirectory. If I was to go in just as a normal user, because these are configuration files, it would not allow me to do it. I have to go in as the administrator, all right? And if I just do a simple dir, those are all the files. You see the .pf extension. Those are prefetch files. They're not log files. They're used by the operating system to enhance or expedite installations. Now, again, we're assuming, because I know it's there, we've talked about that we're kind of expediting things. The individual who owns a laptop says, I've never used Zoom, right? I know it's on my computer, but I've never used it, right? And maybe the person or persons he's talked to before, they're saying, we've never used Zoom, so we don't communicate with each other at all. So I would look through the prefetch files and maybe do some kind of search on Zoom. Oh, there is a Zoom file there. We see that last written time was July 25th, 2023 at 11:07. That is when the Zoom file got installed. Not when it was used, but when it was created. Now, we can look at the content of that. We need a little special program. It's a free program. It's called PEC Command, and I'm going to clear my screen here a little bit. And it's called PEC MD. I want to look at a file, and I want to look at that Zoom file, and of course I didn't write it down. Let's try it again, dir zoom star, and now I'm going to do PEC MD-F ZOOM.exe-BF2D 7E1A.pf, right? And it spits out a whole bunch of information. Now, these are files that it's used and some of the DLLs that it was associated with. I'm more concerned right here at the initial top of what was outputted. And you can see that, well, this program was installed on May 17th, 2023. It was modified on July 26, 2023. The last time it was accessed, right, when it was used, was September 6, 2023 at 4:15 or 16:15 or 4:15 p.m. All of a sudden, we now know that this program has been used. So when the individuals, that program's there, I've never used it. No. Here is the executable file. Here's its size. Oh, look at this. Here's our old friend, the hash value. So now that, we can find out what the original hash value of the Zoom file is and maybe look at what's currently there and make sure that they weren't tampered with or fudged with or anything like that. It's been running under this Windows 10 or Windows 11 machine. No big deal. But look here. I know it's purple, and I apologize for that. It's run 21 times, right? Now this is my machine, obviously. I have run Zoom in some way, shape, or form 21 times. That may not seem a lot, but that's actually a lot considering that I might run Zoom 2-3 times a week for classes. So this is telling me for over the course of a few weeks. Other times that it is run in the past, right? Here is all running all the way back to Zoom. Last time it was run again. When was the last time it was run? That's when it was actually installed, was the 26th. But the individual is not, it can't hide from this. It's not a log. This file is used by the operating system. I'm going to keep talking about that. But this file also has referenced 14 other, I'm sorry for the coloration here, but it has referenced other files in other subdirectories. This will also tell me, or potentially tell me, this is the default location for Zoom. No big deal. We kind of fluffed that over. But let's say, for example, the individual is running a program from a USB drive, right? So maybe, and there's a lot of programs that you can run from a USB drive, they're saying it's not on my computer, or they delete the application. Maybe the application is some kind of peer-to-peer networking, which many times peer-to-peer networking, legitimate tool, but can be used for nefarious things. And the individual says, I've never used that peer-to-peer networking program. I don't even know what you're talking about. Or they run it from a USB drive. Well, guess what? Prefetch still has to register that. It still has to say, hey, you were running this program, and it's going to reference the exact location. Or if it gets deleted, it's still, Prefetch is still going to get there. It's not going to. So this becomes a very nice tool for us to say, no, we know that that program has been executed on this computer. The program may be gone or still may be there, but this definitely determines that this program has been used. If we use the thing where somebody is running it off a USB drive and they constantly use peer-to-peer networking like every night or every day, but they're saying they're not doing it, we go to Prefetch, and Prefetch basically says, no, the peer-to-peer networking program you've used it 50 times in the last week. So a really nice tool, just an example of a really nice tool, but it is a really nice tool in our investigation here, but it's an example. There are a whole series of other tools we could potentially use. In another video, we're going to talk about the registry and how we can look at the registry and things like that. So that being said, more tools at our disposal. Let's go out and learn them.